Hey everybody, Antoni here, and yes, I was supposed to review Erkel's Hunyadi Lajlo, but that was playing at another theater, and I couldn't really find where it was, even though it was only like 20 minutes away. So I was quite surprised that Hunyadi Lajlo was playing at the Erkel Theater, so I decided to replace that with a review of Erkel's other opera, Ban, which was shown at the Magyar Allami Operahaz, known in English as the Budapest State Opera House. The conductor was Adam Medvedski. The production was done by Csaba Kael. The set design was done by Attila Chikos. The costume designs were done by Rita Velic. The choreographer was Zoltan Farkas, and the chorus master was Kalman Strauss. Now, this was an opera that I am not entirely familiar with, even though I know that a lot of Hungarian opera singers like Rossi and Eva Marton have sung the role of the queen Gertrude. And in terms of the title hero, singers like Attila B. Kiss and Josef Zimandi have been very well-known interpreters of the role. And basing on the music that I heard tonight, I have to say that Erkel's music almost reminds me that of Verdi and Wagner, with a hint of a Hungarian heritage in courtesy of Erkel. I could really hear that in the orchestra and how they played, and even in a lot of the leitmotifs. So even though I was not really familiar with this opera, I was also kind of acquainted by the singers who did this opera, like Eva Marton, Andrea Rost, Attila Bikis, Josef Samandi, Carola Agai, Julia Osvat, and Rossi. They were basically very well known in the roles that they play. And, well, that's just very much it for my personal experience with this opera, even though I know that this opera should be performed a lot more internationally. And now let's get on to what I thought about the production and the costumes. I loved it. I love both the production and the costumes. Every piece of stage design was just so well done, from the castle walls to that huge tree in the forest where Melinda and Tiborch get themselves lost. And, well, basically a lot of the set designs and the costumes were just so gorgeous to look at. Everybody looked very wonderful, and I just had such a blast in terms of this production. And now let's get on with the singers, starting with our title hero, Ban, who was sung by Attila B. Kiss. Now, as I've noticed about the title role of Ban, he needs a spinto or dramatic tenor to really do this role justice. Any spinto tenor who has sung the likes of Eleazar from La Juive, Samson from Samson et Dalila, or even Raoul from Les Huguenots, Robert le Diable, and Hernani, Arvino from I Lombardi, Carlo from I Masnadieri, Cavaradossi from Tosca, Loge from Rheingold, Lohengrin, Walter von Stolzing, and Erik from The Flying Dutchman. A lot of dramatic tenors and spinto tenors have really put their energy into this role, mostly the ones specializing in the Slavic or even the Hungarian repertoire, but also have specialized in a lot of the Italian and French and German repertoire. I thought that with Attila B. Kiss, I really like the texture of his voice, and I also love his acting. However, I seem to notice that he was sort of struggling with some of his notes in the first act, and I noticed that he kind of cracked at a note, which was sort of unpleasant to listen to. There were moments in which he sounded pleasant. There were moments in which he sounded not so pleasant. And I think it was also because of the fact that he has been singing a lot since the 90s. And he specialized in a lot of the spinto tenor roles, which is kind of no surprise, because if you've been singing for like 20, 20 plus years, even 30 years. And with these type of roles, the spinto roles or the dramatic roles, or even those roles that are extremely challenging for your voice, then it kind of takes a toll. And it was sort of evident as I listened to him sing. But nonetheless, he still had a fine timbre. It's just that there were moments in which it was rather inconsistent of how it was going to sound like. Some moments it sounded really, really good. Other moments, not so good. But his acting was quite involving. And I thought that his cavatina at the second act, I thought was well deserved of the round of applause it received. So overall, I really have to say that Attila Bikis was alright. He did have some difficulties in terms of the notes that he sang, and even though he had some inconsistencies, I still felt rather okay with his tenor. He was very enjoyable from beginning to end thanks to his theatricality. And you kind of also have to hand it to him in terms of the quality that he has in his voice. He still has a very fine intonation after all these years of singing. Singing the role of his wife, Melinda, was the wonderful coloratura soprano Orsolia Hainalka Rosa. What I've noticed about Melinda is that she really needs a coloratura soprano, usually leaning towards the dramatic coloratura soprano repertoire. Sure, a lot of coloratura sopranos who have sung the likes of the Queen of the Night, Constanze, Lucia di Lammermoor, Violetta from La Traviata, or Marguerite de Valois from Les Huguenots, or even Olympia or Antonia from Tales of Hoffmann, and even the likes of Anna Bolena, Maria Stuarda, Elisabetta from Roberto Devereux, Amina from La Sonambula, Elvira from I Puritani and Ernani, Elena from I Vespi Siciliani, and even the likes of Sterbinetta from Ariadne auf Naxos. A lot of coloratura sopranos have really flocked to sing this extremely thankless character and have found great successes with it, especially the likes of Julia Osvat and Carola Agai, just to name a few. I thought that Orsolia Hainalka Rosa, I thought she was just excellent. She was able to inhabit her character very, very well, making her such an innocent victim of circumstance and really playing this character really well. And she has such a darling and fine stage presence. And speaking about her singing, my goodness, that voice. It's no wonder why she's usually picked for roles like the Queen of the Night and even Donna Anna. She has a voice in which she can manipulate very, very well. And every time she opens her mouth, it's like a cascade of pearls, diamonds, and sapphires, emeralds, and rubies just fall out of her mouth. It's just like a cascade of jewels and precious stones just falling out of her mouth every time she opens it. She really inhabited the role with such beauty, grace, finesse, and agility. She was such an angel on stage, and especially the costumes that she wore. She had the mannerisms, the voice, and the looks of an angel, and I am absolutely thrilled to see her. In fact, I would go out of my way and say that she was very much the best performer of the evening. Singing the role of Queen Gertrude was Gyöngy Lukács, romanticized as Georgina Lukács. What I've noticed about Queen Gertrude is that she's either sung by a dramatic soprano or a high dramatic mezzo. And usually any singer of Queen Gertrude would usually also specialize in the likes of Amneris, Eboli, Santuzza, Ortrud, Venus, and even the likes of Brunhilde, Isolde, Electra, Turandot, and the Wozzeck Marie. She really needs a flexible voice to really hit those bottom and middle notes and even hit a high C. Not to mention she has to be a very convincing stage actress. Well, with Madame Gyungi Lukacs, I thought she was able to inhabit her role very, very well, giving us such a strong and dignified characterization of this anti-heroine. And she really played her role very well with such dignity and finesse, and her voice was just equally as magnificent. She has a very fine tune to her voice, which has a very homogeneous timbre, which is no surprise because Madame Lukacs has been specializing in a lot of the spinto and the dramatic soprano roles. Her spinto roles usually include the likes of Aida from Verdi's Aida, Elisabetta from Don Carlo, and Amelia from Verdi's Simon Boccanegra. And her dramatic soprano roles include the likes of Puccini's Tosca, Puccini's Turandot, and the Kostelniczka from Janacek's Janufa. She has a voice in which it's very flexible, and she can manage to really use that voice with such theatricality. And even though her high C was kind of thin, I have to say, her theatricality and her overall stage presence was something to behold. Singing the role of her husband, King Endre II, was the veteran bass baritone Istvan Berzelli, who only appeared in the final act. What I've noticed about this role is that even though this role is extremely thankless, he really does need a basso cantante or even a basso profondo to really do this role justice. And with Istvan Berzelli, I was quite surprised that he is in his 70s and still singing. He still has a very fine voice, and even though I could sense the tiredness and aged, feel in his voice because of his age, he's still able to give off a very memorable characterization. I was also quite surprised that he also sang baritone roles in the past, combined with some bass baritone roles and even some basso roles. He was quite flexible in the past, and with hearing him still having that flexibility and that stage presence, I thought he was able to really, really do such a strong, impression in this role. Then we have Otto, sung by actually one of my favorite tenors of the 21st century, and the same gentleman who I saw 2 times when I was spending my Christmas and New Year's break in Vienna. I'm of course referring to Szabolcs Brykna. Now what I've noticed about Otto is that he also needs a slightly lyrical singer. He also needs to have that spinto quality. And I thought with Szabolcs Brykna, he really sang wonderfully. He still continues to give off such fine, wonderful tones, and his singing was just top tier. Then we have, let's see right here, Tiborcs, sung by Tamas Busa. What I've noticed about Tiborcs is that he really needs a strong dramatic baritone. And I thought with Tamas Busa, I thought he was able to give such a strong presence to this character. And he really won me over in terms of his interpretation, his voice, and his overall manner on stage. He has a very dignified stage presence. And then we have Petur Ban, sung by Zoltan Kelemen. Now, what I've noticed about this role is that he also needs a strong dramatic baritone. And man, does Mr. Kelemen have the voice, have the manner, and have the authoritative stage presence, which really makes this role come alive. He really knows how to manipulate his voice. He knows how to manipulate that dark timbre, and he really won me over as both a singer and as an actor. And then we have Biberach, sung by Ferenc Cserhalmi. I thought he did a very good job in this very thankless basso role. Even though his tone was really, really good in his own way, there are times I'm not too much of a fan of it. But still, he's a very, very good singer, And I really find him very, very entertaining, and he has a very strong stage presence to really benefit the drama and to really benefit the text. And then we have the very, very, very small role of the Herald, sung by the chorus member Gergely Irlanda. I thought he has a very fine voice and a very fine stage presence. And the dancers, who are members of the National Ballet, who are Vladislav Melnik, Daniel Fodor, Peter Haidu, Gabor Laiti, Istvan Kohari, and Dmitry Kiryeko. I thought that their ballet scene was absolutely well done. So overall, despite some of the singing, well, having a few setbacks here and there, I thought that the singing was absolutely solid. Special kudos goes to Orsolya Hainalka Rosa for giving such a very wonderful portrayal of Melinda, and I especially love her pleading aria. It almost moved me to tears. And the conducting done by Maestro Adam Medvedski was absolutely well done. Everyone went together. The chorus, the singers, and the orchestra, all thanks to Monsieur Medvedski's really strong conducting. So overall, I have to say that this was definitely a good first impression of what I was going to get myself into. Granted, some of the singing was sort of hit and miss for me, but from what I got, I really had to say that the quality was absolutely good, and the conducting was fine, and the production overall was just excellent. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in tomorrow where I review Wagner's Die Walküre, which will also be shown at the Budapest State Opera, and it stars Linda Watson as the Brünnhilde. So until then, good night, everybody.